Championship matches. This, of course, a big game for him. He goes to d4 this time. As the round of applause down there in the arena, forcing Jan Nepomniachtchi to think.
E6, nice. Okay, that's nice. If E4, we get a French, which is cagey. And there we are. Okay, knight C3, knight of 6. Here we go.
The French defense, it's got a bit of a repetition right at the top, but in the World Championship match, we saw it so many times. It was pieces, and we might be seeing it a lot more at the top level played on. Magnus himself has never been a fan of the French.
He's never been too much of a fan of the French. He's dabbled with both colours, of course. I'm really shocked, I've got to say, to see Magnus avoid the exchange variation. In the meantime, though, he's clearly been paying attention to the World Chess Championship, Gukesh against Ding, because that A3 move on the previous turn that Magnus just played was played by Gukesh with success in the World Championship match. He got a great position later in that game. And we see the white knight's a bit clumsy, but white has won Connect 4, so has occupied the centre, solidified the centre. In the meantime, Jan is fighting against this central strategy with a wing strategy, maybe aiming to bring his knight in a bit later.
So Magnus not the only one who's been paying attention to the World Championship match, and Jan also figuring out the right way to respond to this fresh idea that Team Gukesh had come up with in that match, pushing that A3 pawn. And this, I think, is a new position already, right? Magnus, he goes in with the king side, pushes that H pawn, targeting the queen on the other side. There's so much going on both flanks here, David, but general strategy for white is to play on the right side of the board. It is the pawn pointing theorem. We see that big pawn chain that Magnus has. It points towards the right side, towards the king side, which means in the future we can see an attack developing there.
Definitely. And white's already hinted at that, Magnus, with the AlphaZero-esque neural network suggestion of pushing the H-pawn forward. You often actually develop your rook kind of up the board. You lift it. Of course you do. And yeah, it's just hard to develop the king, kind of get it to safety, hard to castle, hard to get the bishop out either. And Jan keeps his options open. I wonder whether he'll be tempted by a different type of pawn break. F6 in the air. Okay, Magnus, in the meantime, improves his bishop.
Yeah, and this whole idea of the knight retreating back to E2, that was a B1 knight. Let's remind everyone, that's not the king side knight that's landed up there. It all revolves around solidifying the D4 square, the soul of white's pawn center, and then eventually transferring that knight to the king side. Again, this was an idea that we saw by Team Gukesh many times against the French in the World Championship. James, so fascinating that the match just finished, and Magnus has employed 2 of those novelties by Gukesh in the Champions Chess Tour. We saw him play Rook E1 yesterday and the A3 against the French today.
I mean, this stuff's been worked out. He had seconds and thirds and fourths and fifths working with him. Of course, the stuff's got to work. So, you know, he's like, I'm just going to play it and see what he does. And, it's nice because A3 stops a lot of black's ideas on the queen side, especially with his A-pawn pushing all the way down to A3. You also can play B4. This is sometimes reminiscent of a Milner-Berry as well, where you see a lot in advanced variations here. From pushing, bishop comes into D3, and you have yourself a Greek gift if he's not careful. Bishop D3, bishop takes H7, knight G5, mate in 12. Max.
Wow, and let's show this because I'm actually shocked. I mean, I've been shocked a lot on the Champions Chess Tour, but black castling, that's the one thing you're not supposed to do in this type of position because the black king has no shelter around it. If, for example, now Jan tries, I don't know, queen to A5,
or something, yeah.
You just ignore it. Bishop to D3, right? And talk us through this checkmate, James.
C takes D4, bishop takes H7, king takes, queen H5, or sorry, yeah, knight G5, king G8, queen H5. Even bishop takes, doesn't matter, however you want to do it. Queen H5, bishop takes. Pawn takes, push the pawn, G6 first, and then mate.
I mean, it's so simple.
Clinical.
Yeah. Whoa, and this would be absolute disaster. So Jan desperately trying to get the queens off the board. Magnus, will he find the way to keep them on? He does. And look at that king, you pointed it out, right? Going shot castle in this position. All of Jan's forces are on the left side of the board. Offside, far away from getting to the defense of that black king. The knights, the bishops, the queen, and the rook. Meanwhile, all of Magnus's army has directed itself to that right side. That has got to be danger zone. Queens on. This might be a miniature coming in.
Oh, this is terrifying. The white queen has been deflected away from that checkmating pattern, but only temporarily. So the white bishop will come to D3, might even take a kind of shimmy back to kick away the black queen, and then we might see that type of sacrifice emerge. And yeah, I mean, I was commentating on one of those games in the World Championship match. This is literally the one thing that Ding was trying to avoid at all costs. And now Jan's walked into it.
Same. We were doing the commentary as well, and when we saw this position, we kept talking about how you just don't go shock castle in this because the king is in such big danger zone. And Ding did that to perfection. He castled much, much later on in the game, kept it in the center because it happens to be a lot safer there. You know, not deciding where exactly to. You don't show your hands which side you castle. But this is Jan Nepomniachtchi asking for big trouble. And what surprises me is also that Jan was definitely following the match. There's no way that he didn't see that game.
Yeah, ultimately, it's a bit like game 2 of today's match. A bit of an opening slip-up, and already, is there a way back into this game for Jan? That's the big question. Later, he was pretty much lost, facing a scary attack, and again, lightning has struck twice here. He's down 2.5 minutes on the clock, or 3 minutes even on the clock at this point, and he just needs to survive. I don't know how he's going to do that. Big challenge ahead of Jan Nepomniachtchi to stay in this match.
David, he has to win this game to stay in this match. And look at the position that you've got. You know, you're already looking at tactics, and Jan with a shake of his head.
Jeez, what move is this? Shaking head? 14? Dang.
He immediately realizes the danger that he has walked into. Just that hasty decision of making that hand move of castling. Pawn takes pawn, expecting Magnus to recapture with his own pawn, keeping the center solid. The next few moves are so easy for Magnus, right? Get the bishop out to d3, put that bishop back, kick the queen out, jump with the knight to g5.
Yeah, look at that bar rising. It's almost sky high now in Magnus's favour, and it's level material. He's about to play the most natural move. He brings his bishop out, that bishop defended by one of White's knights. Pointing at the black king, everything's pointing. The white rook on h1 in the corner there on the right side might just lift up as well. The black queen is a target, and black's play meanwhile, again, just wrong side of the board. The white structure cuts the board in half, and wow, Jan is even touching pawns in front of his own king. That's what not to do in these positions. Never touch pawns on the side you're weaker. That's the advice. Will it backfire?
And look at Magnus, he's ready with the battery. The queen and the bishop is lined up against that hook that Jan has just created on h6. Now there are all kinds of sacrifices on that square, and you can hear Jan. He can't believe it. He's breathing so heavy in this position right now. James, there are all kinds of tactics. The rook lift, move that bishop away, hit that black queen, knight out of the way, bishop takes pawn in the air. I can imagine your spidey sense is tingling right now.
Absolutely. In fact, my tactic senses are always tingling. In fact, as bishop c2 is nice, then maybe queen b6. Maybe he tries queen c4 because that might keep the queen tied down. The problem here is what I was going for is after bishop c2, play knight h5, and then bishop takes h6. You can even go rook h3, rook g3. You can even go g4, g5. It's really a matter of taste here. I think bishop c2 is nice, though, with this knight h5 idea, and literally all of my pieces are pointing. Bishop c2, yeah, rook h3. So, I mean, it's just a matter of what do I want to pick. Rook h3, and I think this is probably maybe one of the best because you do develop, you get more pieces into the attack. The more pieces I have, the better. Knight c4, maybe rook g3 anyway. Just don't care about it.
Bring everything. Rook g3, knight h5 just looks like game over right now. You take that bishop on e3, white will recapture with the queen. He first kicks the black queen out. That rook and knight combining against threats on the g7 pawn. I don't see Jan surviving this one.
This is going to be an early knockout. This is going to be an early end to the final. We've seen the shaking of the head. This is so one-sided, and this is what happens in must-win situations. It changes the mindset. You take bigger risks than you normally would, and Jan just made one mistake in this game. He castled too early. It's a blocked pawn structure. The white knight is coming now. Big threat on the board. Bishop takes pawn, followed by the white queen incursion here.
It's funny that you said that, David. So he was like, I mean, he just made one mistake. He just, he castled his king, which is a thing you're supposed to do. All right? Safety of the king, and it loses almost immediately.
And the crowd, applauding. I think they're pre-moving bishop takes pawn right now on the board. Or the rook move that you're talking about. Takes pawn would be game over. This is looking so busted for that black king. Notice how all of Jan's pieces are so far away from getting to the defense. That e5 pawn stopping any piece to arrive on f6. Jan looking away. He's disgusted with the position on the board. How do you even defend this for the next few moves?
Yikes.
You don't. I think it's that simple. We see the shaking of the head. He's down under 4 minutes now, Jan Nepomniachtchi. He might just try to go down in flames here. There's simply nothing to do. You don't want to get checkmated, of course. You don't want to be remembered for a checkmate in the final of a big event like this, but it's inevitable. It's too late. He castled into the firing line. No way back.
He literally castled into getting checkmated. You know, you castled to get your king to safety, but this was the most unsafe position for the king. Jan knows it, Magnus knows it. These are the last few moments of the Champions Chess Tour finals.
Yeah, Magnus, he has so many ways to cash in, to break through towards that black king, which is devoid of defenders.
The crowd is just
ringing out again.
They're like, yo, resign, bro. Like, this is hilarious. It's great to have the live audience, too. It's amazing. But, yeah, I mean, it's just clearly over here. Nothing. And black has no pieces really developed on the back rank. I mean, you have the bishop. Okay, you have you have knight and bishop on e7 are developed, but it's really it. It's nothing else. How do you stop this attack? You just don't. Bishop takes a6 is coming. You can try knight takes e3. That's fine. I go queen takes, and maybe a queen b3, trying to trade the queens off.
Do you think he's going to resign?
I think he might be tempted. He's fighting every urge in his body to resign, Jan Nepomniachtchi. If this weren't the final game, I think we might have already seen a handshake and Jan moving on.
It's 2.5 minutes. He does make a move, takes that bishop, will be recaptured by the queen. The rook is lining up next. Jan trying to break free with that move f5. Rook g3, f4 is guarded, g7 under fire, h6 under fire, Jan's king under fire.
Queen h2. That's the resi for yikes. Give me brilliant, very quick game.
It's coming. The white queen now captures a pawn. There's a pin here. He defends with all his might, all of his remaining strength in the finals here. Jan Nepomniachtchi, he's got the big square covered.
Is knight g5 we sack the queen, knight takes e6? No, not yet.
It's coming in next. He simply sidesteps. There's no attack on the queen. Knight g5.
And it's a handshake. Magnus Carlsen wins the 2024 Champions Chess Tour finals. Nepomniachtchi there going down in flames. It was Magnus, of course it was, for the 5th year in a row. So impressive.